one of the things that I remember thinking I wanted to make sure I didn't do was a lot of the same things that my father, who was the abuser, did, which was he was an alcoholic and a drug user. And so I was like, as a parent, I will never do that. And to just really do the work that I needed to do to heal. I want to do everything that I need to do to make sure that I don't go down that path. And so I knew part of that was to dedicate myself to healing so that I was breaking all of those cycles.
I am currently talking to my son about consent, teaching him, his body is his body. He's allowed to say no. I've been teaching him he's allowed to say no since before he's been able to speak. I've been his advocate, telling him that he's allowed to say no if he doesn't want to hug somebody, if he doesn't want to be tickled, if he doesn't want to, do anything, that it's his body. Recently, we have had to re-explain in older terms, since now he's 5, that we're having to re-explain, no means no. He is allowed to say no. His body is his body. The only people who should, at his age right now, the only people who should be seeing him are his parents and a doctor. And secrets are not to be kept from mom and dad, because secrets from anybody could lead to something that could harm him. So we're working on the language, but we're opening up that conversation.
So how I approach it with the teen, I ask him, do you understand what consent means? And I want him to explain in his own words. And he explained back to me. So I say, okay, let's just talk about examples. So we have almost like an adult conversation, which that I know that because he think he's teenager and he wants to be big boy and he wants to have that the adult conversation and he enjoy that. So I'm kind of catered to his level of understanding. And for my 8 years old, he just loves spelling words. He loved writing things. He loved illustrate picture. So we talk about that. I'm like, and just, hey, this is, if you want to, you want something or someone want to give you something and it's okay that you say, no, I don't want it. Or it's okay for you to, if someone just like, want to lead, take your hand and walk with you. I'm like, oh no, I just teach them to be polite as well, just kind of like learn how to say no with either verbally or with the body language. I also teach them to make sure that they understand the body language of others. If someone just like have the eye and they look like they step back, that's a sign for no. So far so good. And I think to do it that way, I'm earning their we're building trust there, because my teenager just a couple of nights ago, he knocked on the door late at night and just like, hi mom, can I talk to you? And he's like, I'm so stressed out about school, I have tests coming up, my best friend not talk to me, can you, so I'm just being a parent of teen who turn the switch, have to let him talk. But then I have a little one who like, mom, I don't understand how to do the division, can you teach me? So I have to switch back to that. But all in all, so children understand and they can learn as long as you set yourself a good example on the consent, I believe.
I started as early as I realized that I needed to with my oldest, who was 5 at the time. He's 9 now. And you know, as I had more babies, I started immediately with all of them, and I've seen the difference from how my firstborn, you know, was in those very early years versus my younger children now, who really do understand, and they have been able to learn how to vocalize very clearly, like when they don't want something, you know, in terms of physical contact, or you know, they're still, you know, the youngest one is still shy at times to be able to speak up, and that's where I've learned to be a role model in that way and help him get the language to, you know, communicate what he does or doesn't want, and to remind him that, you know, he has the right to his boundaries, and to empower them with the understanding of body autonomy and what that means. And then of course consent, you know, because the consent is a two-way street, right? It isn't just about like saying no to something that you don't want, but also to respecting the rights of others. And so one of my children, you know, has a bit of a challenge with that, where, you know, they're very, very aware of their own boundaries and being able to communicate it, but then will, you know, push the boundaries of others. And so it's an ongoing practice. And I think a lot of parents feel like if the child isn't responding, that they're getting it wrong. And so for anyone who's watching that feels like they've tried and haven't succeeded, like, it's a matter of finding the different ways that a parent can communicate with the child, because not everybody learns the same way. Some kids learn through watching or reading or hearing or, you know, doing. But the biggest thing was to make sure that it's an ongoing practice, and not to ever feel like, okay, we read a couple of books and we talked a couple of times about it and like we're done. It has to be something that kids get to practice regularly, because without that practice, when they do find themselves in a challenging situation that's potentially unsafe, if they haven't had the practice of vocalizing, then it doesn't come naturally. It's not going to be like second nature. So that's something, you know, obviously as a abuse prevention educator, we practice it all the time at home, and it's something that just becomes part of my parenting. And I think for a lot of people, it you know, they may feel like it's too late whenever they started, but it's never too late. Like, I just, you know, for anyone who's listening and you have an older child and you're like, we didn't do that, this is a great time to start. So I just, you know, always encourage people, it doesn't matter what stage or age your child is at, you can always have these really important conversations and put them into practice. Like, don't just learn the information, but actually practice it in your home and give your children that, like, that sense of empowerment, that their voice matters, and that, you know, they have rights, and they can utilize them, and that you're always that safe person. You know, like Moon was saying, you know, her kids feel like they can come to her because she's created that safe space for them. So that's something that we're always reminding them of as well.
I do talk to my kids about consent and making sure that they are aware of body boundaries, and, you know, that they don't infringe on another child's boundaries, as well as set their own. Like my youngest son, he's only 2, and my daughter is 5, and he doesn't really understand what's going on. So if she does something just exploring, I tell him, you tell her no. And he says, no. And I say, say it again. I'm like, say it louder. So I let him practice it actively, as well as I did that for her when she was younger too.
I don't usually work with a nanny or a caregiver. I have 1 or 2 family members I trust to leave with my son. And even then, I only will leave my son with them if I absolutely have to. I've probably left my son with someone definitely less than 10 times, and he's 5 years old. I have a security camera, and I will check in often. So yeah, I have trust issues.
I go back from when my 16 years old was a baby. We both, my husband and I, we both working, so we have to put him in a daycare, which, you know, is a daycare is it's very well known daycare in town. If I say the name, everyone's probably gonna know it. But I make a mistake where I did not do the thorough interview, and I trust the name of the place and all that. So when my son went from the 1-year-old classroom to the 2 years old classroom, I pick him up, I pack him the food because he's not like really eating anything. He just knew. So anyway, so when I pick him up, the food was still there, and the teacher just keep telling me about how he just keep crying and crying nonstop. So they have to send him back to a 1-year-old classroom until I spot. I'm like, oh, that's his food. Did he eat today? So basically, they did not feed him for 7 hours because they say, oh, I didn't know that was his label was there. There's supposed to be the form filled out, all of that. So I got that person fired basically because I was threatening them to, you know, I'm gonna call the news. It's just ridiculous. I can't believe that this is some kind of abuse. You just neglect my child. So since then I took him out and you know, just basically, I don't have family member here, but my husband I kind of have trust issue also. So so my husband and I, we decided to work a split shift, you know, AM, PM. That way we can keep him home. Now, with my little one, because their age is like big gap, about 8 years different. So with my little one, anytime that I need to have a babysitter, I learn from my mistakes. So I ask question, I take my child with me and spend some time with this person, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just to see that interaction. And teaching my child know how to help themselves. Like if they're hungry, they know that to ask, I'm hungry, I want to eat, or I need to go to the bathroom, things like that. So I think it is important also that you prep your child just like all of us do, you know, teach them the consent, because you can't really depend on adult all the time, especially if it's not one of your own bubble circle. But now I'm better because I have a built-in babysitter. My 16 years old can watch my 8, so golden.
So with it's been different with all 3 of my children, but with my very first one, he started in a daycare when he was about 2 years old. And it was a person that we knew in town, but even still, because of my own past experiences and my sister, my mom, and just also like hearing stuff in the news of like, you know, daycares and or babysitters, like just not having that trust. I was just really hyper vigilant all the time. And one of the things that I took away from that is that for me, I basically needed to like start my own business or work from home or like find a way to make an income while still being able to be more hands-on with my child's daycare or you know, taking care of them myself. And I also was really lucky that I had grandparents that were helping. So both my mom and my husband's mom would be able to help out at times with that. So I was fortunate in that way. And I feel for those who like don't have those options and they can't do that. So with my programs that I've created, one of the things that I developed because of my own experiences and like not, you know, knowing how to like set boundaries initially with people, like how to express, you know, that, hey, I'm watching and I'm paying attention, and like, you know, without being offensive, but at the same time affirmative that like, you know, we are being proactive in our home and teaching our child. And so what I created were these things called consent letters. So there are these templates that you can customize and give out to whether it's a doctor or a teacher or a coach or a daycare provider, a babysitter, even family members, to communicate essentially like we're teaching consent education in our home. This is what it means. This is how we practice it. And this is what we expect you to do. So if you need to handle our child for whatever reason that is, this is how you would have to go about it, and ask for consent and wait for a response. And if you don't, then this is, if they say no, then this is, what next steps to take. So it was really clear and laid out. And it was also a way for me to say, like, to any potential predators, like, hands off, basically, because I'm paying attention and I'm educating my child, and my child knows. Like, even in one of my consent letters for relatives, it specifies in there, like, we don't teach, we teach our child not to keep any secrets. So, specifically for grandparents, well, they'll want to spoil the child, and, like, here's some candy, like, don't tell your parents. Like, it specifies in the letter, do not even, say it's a good secret or anything, because we have that as a family safety rule, not to keep secrets. So again, just another way to, the letters are also, like, created in a way that is asking people to be allies. So the people who genuinely do care and want the best for your child are going to be on board with this. And it kind of helps weed out, like, whoever is resistant or feels like it's over the top, I would be suspicious of, and I would say, okay, well, if you don't want to get on board with this, thank you very much. Now I know that, we can't keep you as a safe person in our circle, So that was what I ended up developing, because I had gone through this like 3 times of my own anxiety of, like, how can I really trust? How can I know? And so I think it's important for parents to also be able to, like, vocalize it to all of the people in your child's life, that you are doing this in a way that isn't going to make them feel offended. Because I think that's a lot of times what people are worried about. It's like, I don't want them to think that I think they're a predator, but I also, if they are a predator, I want to let them know that, I'm paying attention very closely. So that's essentially the way that I've managed it, was to create these letters, and they've been really helpful. I think for a lot of people who have received them, the ones that receive them with open arms, and it's like, oh, this is a great way to educate your child. Like, I know that I still don't have 100%, trust in anyone, unfortunately. I think that's just the nature of having young kids, especially if they're pre-verbal. Fortunately, my kids are now, verbal, but when they're really young and they're so defenseless, like, you have to be an advocate on their behalf and speak up. And so, having created these just gave me so much more peace of mind. And doesn't mean I'm less vigilant, but I feel more confident that those people are also more aware and are going to help me with educating my child. So contributing to that education, I think, goes a long way. And hopefully they'll be able to learn how to do that with other kids as well.
So for me, there were levels from in the beginning to where I am now with how I handled that. And in the beginning, it was a lot of indirect messages, kind of passive. Like, if they did something I didn't like, I just wouldn't bring the child around. And that wasn't communicating anything. As I became stronger, I realized I needed to speak up. So instead of being just paranoid, I would say things that I would worry about. And I'm like, just watch out for that, or don't do that with my child. And I would let my children speak up. And I did have a set of relatives that didn't like my children speaking up, because I want them to be very vocal about even regular things that they don't like, not just body censorship, but anything where the child has a say in whether they like something or don't. I let my children express it, even if I'm not going to let them do it or not give it to them. I want them to feel comfortable expressing no's and yeses. And even in front of really old adults who are more, set in their ways. And they might say, oh, they're overreacting. And I'm like, oh, well, if that's how my child feels, then okay. And they might take it as disrespectful, but I feel like it's better for them to be overboard with their yeses and nos than under, and someone else see that they could take advantage of them. as Rosalia said with the secrets, that was another test that you can use to see who is worthy of watching your children. And even after expressing, like, I don't want my children to have secrets or keep secrets, one particular family member would still go ahead and do it. And of course, my child would come back and tell me. So now my children just don't stay over there. If they go over there, it's only while me or their dad are with them. And that's that. Even with gentle pats on the butts with children, it doesn't matter who you are, how innocent it is, like everything is a red flag to me. If I speak to you about it once, let alone twice, and you don't listen, then that means to me that you are releasing your rights to watch my children alone. So I'm very serious about that. But in the beginning, when I was just paranoid and not explaining or setting proper boundaries, I took a shoe from one of my babysitters and her car keys. So she wouldn't run away with my children. That's how paranoid I was in the beginning. So it's come a very long way. She was so cool about it. She was like, okay, fine. Yeah. Anything else? You want my wedding ring? She was really nice. So yeah, I feel like there are stages to getting to this point, but yeah, I try and practice.
I don't think I did because I was so fearful of it, because that is a real fear. Because that is it's a cycle. I was scared that if I even said it out loud, that would make it even more real. But or maybe I did. Now that I'm thinking about it, I probably did say something to my husband, and he made me. Yeah, he said the fact that I even said anything to him lets him know that I have nothing to worry about because I'm worried about it. But even still, there are even still sometimes I'm just like, oh, is that something? But that's just a built-in fear. It's probably just a protection mechanism, built from the fear. But yeah.
Well, we all dealing with stress in our life, and either work, either something else, financial, or you name it. There's a long list. But even when I just remember when my kids were babies, and you hear the crying, lack of sleep, and you just want to scream, or you want to, like, you feel that overwhelmed, and you have the urge of, I just want to scream, or something, and you kind of try to control yourself from that. And I remember, and my husband would watch me, I guess, the baby blue or whatever you call it. So I feel like I'm just like find myself go in a corner and crying because I feel bad that I might have to say stop, to my baby who have no clue what I just said, but I feel bad about it. So so we have a talk that where, what, we're gonna have to we're gonna be parents no matter what for the rest of their life. So we have to support each other. We need to look out for each other. So if I'm overwhelmed, then we like tag you it, he'll take over. And we got to have that trust of, he is a good dad as much as I am a good mother. So that's kind of like self-reassurance that you got to tell yourself that. But be mindful and be self-aware to catch yourself before you scream or do something, or even worse, if you hit them, not, I never done it, but I can see the overwhelming things can lead into something that you can't take it back. So I think, it's so important that we got to work together. That's the thing that I talk to my husband, because we're not only raising our children, we're raising a quality adult for the society. So however we want to groom them to be good, we're gonna have to set a good example, and we're gonna have to be able to work together hand in hand, because that's what they see and that's what they are going to remember to teach the next generation.
I don't think that when I was pregnant, I had these fears necessarily, because I didn't actually, I had repressed memories until my child was about 5. And then it like all came up. But I did have the fear of becoming an abuser at that point, like once things did surface and I was doing therapy and talking about this. And one of the things that I remember thinking I wanted to make sure I didn't do was a lot of the same things that my father, who was the abuser, did, which was he was an alcoholic and a drug user. And so I was like, as a parent, I will never do that. And so I made it a point to like not drink and to just really do the work that I needed to do to heal, because I have a sense that my father was also abused as a child, and so he won't admit it, but I know that there was something. And so I was like, if that was part of what caused him to do what he did, and he's not admitted it or accepted it, and I, like I want to do everything that I need to do to make sure that I don't go down that path. And so I knew part of that was to dedicate myself to healing so that I was breaking all of those cycles. And it's a fear that is this odd thing in the back of my mind. Every so often it like pops up and it like freaks you out, because you're like, why am I even thinking about that? And you end up feeling like guilt and shame about it. Not that you're imagining doing that to your child, but just even the idea of you ever being capable of something like that, like freaks you out, And so, like being able to share and be honest about that, and like know that it is a fear that most survivors actually do have, kind of relieved me of some stress from it, because I was like, okay, I know that I'm not the only one who struggles with this, and I know that I would never hurt my children in that way. I hope to not hurt my children in any way, obviously, but making sure that I'm doing everything I can to break all of those cycles, including like, drug or alcohol abuse, and healing, and like doing that inner work of being a better person in general, to become a better parent, to be able to give my kids what they need is always ongoing for me. So that's how I've been able to counter that and not have that fear like cripple me. So
I spoke to my partner kind of a roundabout way when it came to my fears about abuse, potential sexual abuse with my children. And I did that with books, because at the time I was writing my children's book, and I would bring up all the statistics I was finding out, and whatever new book I read, I'd be like, here, you should read this. And I remember one book, it was horrible. The author wrote an amazing book about signs to look for, and just, it was really great. And then she also mentions that even though she wrote this book, even though she disclosed to her husband, she found out that he was molesting 2 of their children, 2 out of 3. And so I brought that up to him, like, I'm watching you kind of notion. And I always bring it up to him. I'm just like, no one has a green pass for me. Not even a pastor, my mother, my husband, no one. So I bring that up to him to say that you cannot tell what an abuser looks like based off of what they do, their profession, what they say, even if they're advocating for abuse, and that we just have to be vigilant. And I really don't think that he would do that. But like I said, I'm not going to rely on what I think. And he has expressed his support in also being vigilant. he stands by me whenever I think we need to do something, or he listens if I start feeling anxiety about certain things because I do have stepkids as well. And he would just say things like, "Oh, we could just add another camera. Would that make you happy?" And I'm like, "Yes, more cameras." Or if we go on a long vacation, he's always like, "Oh, we could just let so and so family member watch." And I'm like, "Or not." And so he actually suggests bringing a babysitter on our full long vacations. And that makes me feel so good because even though they're like right there, um, just knowing that there's someone watching them, I mean, knowing that they're right there with someone watching them, it makes me feel better than if they were halfway across the world with someone we trust and I can't see. Because there's nothing like actual physical presence. That helps a lot. And, we do mention that we have guns. We mention how much we will die for our children. I bring that up a lot so people know, like, I am not kidding around. So, yeah, I think we're pretty on it with that. And I'm very fortunate that he supports me in that area.
I wanted to go back on what Boom had to say. My husband and I, we have a code word. We have a code word for when we get overwhelmed and stressed because, like she was saying, how like you can tag your it. We have a code word, and like if I see him getting overwhelmed and stressed out, where he can't, where it's like you're making this way so much bigger than what it is. Remember, he's just 5. Calm down. I got it from here. Fidelio. Like, you go rest, do what you need to do. I got it from here. Come back when you're calm and, you know, go about your business. But yes, and then also on what Shanique said, my husband and I, we also take our, when we go on vacations, we bring our son with us because we would much rather just have him with us on our vacations than have him far away where we can't have him, we can't see him, because that scares us. That scares both of us, So yeah, we're very vocal about, like, we need him there. It's just much safer that way for everyone involved. Just be open and honest about everything to your partner, to your co-parent, and be an advocate for your child. Be an advocate for your child and for yourself, because parenting is a mirror and will bring up everything and anything that you have not fully healed yourself. And it's just an ongoing thing. So just to be open and ready to stay on a journey of healing so that you can heal together and do the right thing for your family.
So I think it is a known fact that children don't come with a set of instruction or manual. Same goes with the parenting. How I parenting might be different than other ladies, but at the end of the day, you are the one who know what best for your children, and we all love our children, so obviously we're gonna try to do everything possible to help them. What Angela said, you need to also aware of yourself that you need to heal. If there's a trigger that either caused by your children, they might have said something so innocently, don't get upset with them. Don't take it personal. Obviously, think of them as a white sheet of paper, because they don't know what they don't know. Therefore, when they express their opinion or say things, they might not really understand what did they do to us. So I think it is also help with anyone that being abused, that, you know, self-care is so important. Take care of yourself first, and that way you can be strong for your children. You can lead by example, and you can be that role model for them. And yeah, you can create that safe environment for them to grow up into, you know, adulthood, and be the good people for their spouse in the future or whatnot. Oh, take care of yourself.
I just have so much to say, and I'm trying to figure out where to start because I think when we begin parenting, like it's like opening a can of worms, and you think like you have to try to get the worms back in the can, but it's actually no, the best thing you can do is actually dump it out and look at it and figure out what it is that is going to help you heal, is going to help you be is going to help you grow, you know, so that you can be the better parent for your child. I think parenting is really like healing our own wounds through reparenting ourselves. Like we tend to, I mean, I think regardless of your own trauma, because everyone has had different experiences, and you know what's traumatic for one person is not for another. And so a lot of times we think, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way because my trauma wasn't that bad, or we may think my trauma was so bad that there's no way that I can heal. And everyone has the capacity. It's innate in us, and we may feel like we were robbed of that capacity at times, but it's actually just, we have to just find that way back home to our inner power, and we can all do that. So I want to encourage parents to believe in themselves and their ability to heal and grow and be the parents that they wish that they had had. And I think for you know, when it comes to abuse prevention, we also have to give ourselves grace to know that we are on a journey, and that we didn't, you know, if we screwed up, it's not necessarily a failure. It's just a lesson that we can take to improve upon. So I guess my advice would be, you know, to step into your healing journey if you haven't. And if that seems really scary, or you feel depleted because you're so chronically tired from just trying to survive, that maybe the first step is really to develop resiliency, which means doing all of those things that are going to help you develop strength, you know, internally, and to get strong enough to be able to step into that healing journey. You know, because I know from personal experience and from family and friends who are also survivors that had really traumatic experiences that went on for years, and they're just like almost recovering after decades of just even coming to terms with their own abuse. And then on top of that, having to jump into parenting in maybe not such great relationships, or, you know, whatever those variables are, that sometimes we just need to take care of ourselves first and start from that place of gaining our energy and taking back our power, so that we're strong enough to actually step into a healing journey and dedicate ourselves to healing those things, so that we don't pass on that trauma to our kids. So I think that's what I would say is, you know, get strong enough. And if you are already strong enough and you're ready to step into that healing journey, to do it, to have the courage to do it for not just your kids, but for yourself, and believe in your ability to have a life that you really always dreamed of, and to be able to thrive. So that's what I would say.
My message to parents parenting after abuse would be, first of all, to talk to your partner, talk to God, pray for wisdom, pray for guidance, talk to your children, talk to neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to therapists. In the Caribbean community, silence is what keeps this going on. It's amazing when we talk to someone and we hear, oh, that was in my family too. That was in mine. That was in mine. And it's just this hushed little secret. The first thing they always tell us is, don't tell grandma, she can't handle it. Don't tell your father, he'll lose it. And silence is what keeps this cycle continuing. Silence is what eats us up inside, and we can't sort through the feelings and the emotions that we have. And silence is what takes us out of the situation, and we desensitize. And then the pattern continues because you've checked out mentally. You'd rather just not deal with it. Some people, we're the hypervigilant ones who are here. But those who say, don't want to do this panel, don't want to talk about it, don't want to face the facts, want to live in denial, they're the ones who I'm urging to just talk. Just even if you have to write it down and mail it to someone, which is how I even opened up to my husband. I had to write it on a paper and give it to him. I didn't even verbalize. So please, just for yourself, for your children, talk to someone who doesn't even know you, because they won't judge you if you feel guilt inside. And if you feel like you're not doing a good job, just talk. It has to spill out. You have to let the emotions flow. And also just give yourself time with parenting. You might be a little crazy at first, or maybe too lackadaisical. It doesn't matter which way you go, but give yourself time. Realize it is a journey. You'll get better as you go along. Don't compare yourself to someone else who's been on their journey for a longer time, because for you, you don't know how long it's going to take. And as long as you are trying to be a good parent, you're already doing the best that you can. So just give yourself grace. Pray for that.
My name is Boom, and I'm a survivor.
Hi, I'm Rosalia, and I'm a survivor.
I'm Anji, and I'm a survivor.
Hi, I'm Shanique, and I'm a survivor.